All right, Nick, let's talk about the Seattle Seahawks as the trade deadline approaches. There's rumors in any which way about multiple different teams. There's a couple different rumors about the Seahawks in particular. I think they're both will be very interesting to Seahawks fans. We'll dive into that in just 1 second here. But first, I'm Andrew. That's Nick, and this is Saturday Morning Inspection. All right, Nick, as I alluded to, multiple rumors involving the Seahawks and the trade deadline that is fast approaching. I think both of these are going to be very interesting to Seahawks fans. So let's jump into the articles, and we can talk more about it on the other side. So these are both from SI.com. First one says ESPN insider Jeremy Fowler dropped more details on how talks are going around the league, giving him a 50% chance to be trading. When they talk about they're talking about cornerback Tariq Woolen with the Seattle Seahawks. He says multiple league execs have Woolen earmarked as a strong trade candidate per Fowler. They've been wanting to move him for a while. One executive said per Fowler, he doesn't fit what Mike McDonald wants to do, talking about later on that he'd also be more of a fit to a more man scheme. So Tariq Woolen in the Mike McDonald defense hasn't really been fitting out the way that they wanted to. Says a 50% chance of being traded. I think those are pretty good odds as far as what people are willing to be say. You know, everybody always teeter-totters, not going to give you 100% of the information, but for someone to say 50%, I think that's pretty dang close to being 100%, in my opinion. The second part here is something else I think is very interesting. When asked about the trade deadline and whether they're going to add any additions to this team, head coach Mike McDonald says, we're always active. Seahawks coach Mike McDonald said Monday per The Athletics. Michael Sean Duggar, you know how John rolls. We're in everything. We're constantly trying to do what's best for us. Sometimes that is through acquisition. So McDonald here hinting not only are they potentially going to be sellers at the trade deadline in the case of Tariq Woolen, they're also potentially going to be buyers. And I think when you look at some of the headlines, when there's smoke, there's fire. One of the positions that they are mainly looking for is that right guard position. We bring up here, I have some headlines saying former first round guard fairy tale trade acquisition for the Seahawks. Seahawks outsider names 3 NFL trade deadline targets for guard. Could fix their greatest problems. Right guard should be their top priority. Then again, the last one, Wyatt Teller, Joel Petonio, and Kevin Zeitler have to become Seattle Seahawks. So all headlines, 3 different articles, all very close to each other within the last few days, talking about how the Seahawks should or are going to target a guard at the trade deadline. So I think those are 2 things concerning the Seahawks that will happen very, very shortly. One, Tariq Woolen being moved because those words were saying he does not fit what this team is doing defensively stand very strong for me, especially when you look at Woolen and what he's done the last couple of seasons. Last 3 years, 2022 through 2024, did okay, pretty good. We all know the one huge interception season for him, but the average about 60, 67 to 69 overall grade the last 3 seasons. This year, he's at a 48.3, and the coverage fit for him, a 47.5 coverage grade, really is not doing a great job in this defense. But we're talking about bad jobs, talking about people who aren't doing very good in certain roles. I think guard is probably definitely the biggest position of need for this Seahawks team, especially when you talk about Anthony Bradford. This guy has an 18 pass blocking grade per PFF, which is bad to say the least. He's 77th out of 79 possible guards in the country. And you think maybe there's a saving grace in his run blocking grade. Not the case either. He's 57.8 run blocking grade, which is 43rd out of 75 qualifying guards at that grade. So Anthony Bradford not doing a whole lot of favors to himself. I think they're looking for a guard to potentially help this team, which is very much a playoff contender, very much a strong team coming into the trade deadline. They want to make additions, but if they have a guy that they feel has value in Woolen and he does not fit the team, they have guys coming back from injury, their depth is getting solved a little bit. I think that's going to be a priority for them as well. So I really like the rumors going on for the Seahawks. I don't think the rumors, I think that will happen. I think Woolen does move, And I do think they go after a guard for the replacement of Bradford. Curious what your thoughts are on all of this, Nick. But before we get to you, Seahawks fans, in the comment section below, pretty straightforward with this one. I want to know your thoughts on these two options. Option A, do you want them to trade Tariq Woolen? Is it a guy that you feel has fallen off? Does he not fit what they do anymore? Is it a guy that is no longer a good fit for the system and you think you can get some value for him? Or you think maybe just a down year, you should keep him? Then, secondly, I mean, if you like Bradford, let us know in the comment section below. I don't really see how what he's been doing has been striking your fancy, but if you don't, let us know who your ideal candidate to replace him that is actually available would be for the right guard position in the comment section below. But nonetheless, Nick, what are your thoughts with everything here for the Seahawks?
So I think that the Tariq Woolen trade, I think that's more, can you find the buyer at the right price? I mean, I think he's a capable corner, obviously. It's just one of those weird positions around the trade deadline. Everyone always seems to be looking for wide receiver help or defensive end pass rush help. And no one's really going to spend a lot, right? A lot of the trades that have happened today, it's been a lot of 6th and 7th rounders. There's been a couple safeties flying around, but the reality is, in some of those very interesting marquee positions, defensive tackle can be one of them. You look at corner, you don't get a running back is one of them. You don't get a lot of activity. Tight ends rarely get traded. It's a weird situation that happens on the trade deadline. Certain position groups get traded more often than others. And I think Tariq Woolen, if they can find a buyer, I think they make the deal. The challenge will be, is someone willing to give up something for a corner? It's a weird thing in the National Football League where teams just always seem to value their internal corners more than external corners. I think that's a lot of just communication, a lot of understanding the scheme. The bet that I think a lot of defensive coordinators make is, if I have to bring in a new guy and give him a few weeks to get up to speed, at that point the season's got only 4 games left potentially, and what value is there? So I think that could be what happens with Woolen. Now, offensive line, I agree with you. I think they're going to make a trade. I think that's an extremely high probability to try and upgrade Bradford. Because if you look at their offensive line as a whole, if you look at their metrics, the X account computer Cowboy did a good job sort of juxtaposing where the Seahawks sit as both a pass protection per PFF grade as a unit and win rate. And they're right around average, a little bit below average, actually. But that's with Anthony Bradford really weighing it down. If you remove Bradford and just look at the other guys, they're well above average, right? So it's one of those things where if you can find competency, you don't even find a star. If you can find competency, a lot of the names mentioned were veteran stars. But if you just get back to okay, your offense is going to be so much better. And it's already a really good offense. But the one thing that can slow any team like Seattle down, and we saw it with a very similar situation last year with the Minnesota Vikings. Sam Darnold was the quarterback. That's important to remember down the stretch, and most importantly, in the postseason, where the lack of pass protection really just flustered Darnold. That's always been his kryptonite. It's most quarterbacks' kryptonite. He had that disaster of a game against the Rams in the playoffs where at that time the Minnesota Vikings couldn't block the Los Angeles Rams. They had a few weaknesses up front, and they got absolutely obliterated. That is the concern with Seattle. If you make a postseason run down the stretch late this season and potential in the playoffs, if you have a deficit at the offensive line, a good team like the Eagles, heck, maybe even like the Rams, right? They'll have the firepower up front to overwhelm you inside and make your day very miserable if you're Sam Darnold and potentially ruin a season. So I think the Seattle Seahawks, they know they have a chance this season because of how well they're playing at the quarterback position, how well they're playing defensively. It's not getting a lot of attention, but a lot of the young guys are doing extremely well. Nick Warrior looks like one of the best picks in a very long time. It's not as good as Kyle Hamilton, but I tell you what, Mike McDonald's doing a great job with him. But I just think making sure that right guard position gets really solidified is the right move to make. And listen, we know Schneider, he's a wheeler dealer, right? He's made a lot of moves, right? Kupp gone, right? Geno Smith gone, DK Metcalf gone, adding Cooper Kupp, Metcalf gone, Geno Smith gone, right? Adding in Sam Darnold. He's all about making moves. He made a lot of big moves this offseason. I think he's got one more in him. I think the Tariq Woolen trade, I just think it's tough to find a buyer. I think you can find a seller at the guard position. I think there's a lot of interesting opportunities. And I got a name for you guys to keep an eye on, Seattle Seahawks fans. How about Dallas Cowboys backup guard TJ Bass? The Dallas Cowboys have a rookie first rounder at right guard that they like. He missed a little bit of time, and TJ Bass came in, and you can look at his numbers. They're right around average. He's a very capable backup guard, and the Dallas Cowboys right now looking more like sellers than buyers at the deadline. I think that's a name to potentially keep an eye on. And there's other guys as well. Remember, you're not looking for, in my opinion, a superstar veteran guy to come in and make you elite. That's very expensive. I don't know if Schneider makes that kind of deal. I don't know if he finds a seller for that. But you can find a competent guard to come in. And I think Bass for the Dallas Cowboys is one of a couple different options that makes a lot of sense to me, and it won't cost you much. And here's the thing about the Seattle Seahawks. We talked about all offseason. One of the things they've avoided more than anything else is putting themselves in a situation where they can't pay their very talented young core that right now, from the Russell Wilson picks from that trade, when they sent Wilson to the Denver Broncos, all the draft picks they got, a lot of those young players are about to be due for their contracts, their extensions, their re-ups. If they let those guys walk, we talked about this all offseason, it makes the Russell Wilson trade look, kind of pointless. So they're going to do everything they can to keep a lot of dry powder for cap space for those guys. And I think getting a backup offensive lineman or a guy who started some games, Bass has started some games this year for Dallas, for example, I think makes the most sense. It's not the sexiest name. I get it. It's not going to get you jazzed up. No one on ESPN is going to give you an A+ in their trade grade, but you're not looking for a superstar. You're looking for something that doesn't break the bank, that doesn't stop your overall strategy, but is an upgrade. And I think there are a couple options out there. And I think John Schneider, at least he finds one of them. I really think he gets it done because he knows right now, he looks across the NFC, it is wide open. The Eagles are good, but they're beatable. The Packers are really, really good, but they lost to the Browns and they had a tie against Dallas. They played a lot of close games. You look at the Detroit Lions, they're a good team. I think everyone understands that, but they've got defensive flaws, right? There's a lot of issues in the NFC. It is wide open. And I think Mike McDonald and John Schneider realize it. And I agree with you 100%, Miles. I think they make a trade and the right guard position is where they target.
Yeah, Nick, and I think when you look, like you said, this offensive line is pretty above average at all other positions except for guard. I think Cross is doing very well again. I think Lucas is back up to speed. Lucas having his best season of his career so far after kind of having a downward trend after his rookie season. So he's back on track. Great. Zabel looks strong. He hasn't even let up a sack this year. We've done some film reviews on him as well, so go check those out. This line looking good. Bradford definitely is the weak point there. So I agree with you. Woolen, there are rumors, maybe someone's a buyer, but like you said, it's more of, if it could happen, where I think it's a certainty that they're going to go load up at the right guard position to get someone who is going to help them finish out this season strong. Like you said, this really seems strong. Snyder is a guy who can make really great additions. We saw the addition of Cup that he's made. We've seen the addition of a guy, underrated guy, Leonard Williams comes into the fold. He's been great at the middle of this defense as well. They've made key just acquisitions as far as guys through trades, free agency, whatever the case may be. So I think this could be the next big one. They go after a guy, veteran guy, to come in, fill in at right guard. That is the missing piece here. I think this is the glaring weakness of this team. Shore up the offensive line at the right guard position. Help this team make their inevitable playoff push.